Welcome back to IDP Bets. My name is Johny the Greek. How is everybody doing tonight? Good to see you all. Good to have you. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Hope everyone had a good week 6. We definitely did. We went 5-1 last week. Justin Varnes was 3-0, and Mike Wohlert was 3-0 the week before. So a lot of pressure on our guest this week. And we do have a very special guest. He is at PFF_Macri on Twitter, fantasy analyst for PFF, writer of the IDP Fantasy Report, known degenerate and bacon hater, Mr. Macri. How are you?
I am doing good, man. I hearing the records of the past guests definitely has me nervous. Somebody is due to go 0-3, and I am at least concerned that that'll be me. But I mean, here's the thing: we could put as much research and data into these bets as we want. That the players still have to do their part on the field, right? There's every NFL game is different. We're going to provide as much data and reasoning behind the picks. I'm not guaranteeing 3-0, but we're definitely going to try for it.
Oh yeah, no worries, man. I've gone 0-3 at least once this year, maybe twice. So I stink up the joint normally, so it's okay.
Try to help you.
But thanks, buddy. Appreciate that. But yeah, good stuff and good point. There's only so much we can do. The rest is in the hands of the football gods. Before we get into this, though, these are not even suggestions. We're just discussing the bets we might be making personally this week. Set a limit and stick to it. For help with problem gambling, please call 1-800-GAMBLER. And we'll start with our special guest, Mr. Macri. What do you got for your first favorite bet? IDP Bets Week 7.
So I'm gonna go across the pond for the London game here on Sunday morning. I'm gonna go look at Jacksonville and New England, and I want to hit on a sack prop. So we got some tackle props as well, but I do want to start with the sack one. And Keon White is, I mean, speaking of being due, this guy, he hasn't had a sack since week 2. He's still playing a ton, and he's playing really well. And the line right now is for over 0.25 sacks. So he needs a half sack. Keon White, he hasn't played fewer than 73% of defensive snaps in a game. He's averaging 80% of snaps for the year. 86.4 pass rush grade. That ranks 6th at the position as well, just behind Nick Bosa and TJ Watt. 15% win rate is actually better than TJ Watt, just like by 0.1%. TJ Watt's at 14.9. But Keon White is top 15 in total pressures for the position. He's got 22, and he's going against Jacksonville, where Trevor Lawrence owns a 23.1% pressure to sack conversion rate, which is the 9th highest mark among 28 qualifying quarterbacks. And Keon White will play both sides of the offensive line, which means that he's going to see plenty of right tackle Anton Harrison, who owns a 55.8 pass blocking grade, which ranks 62nd out of 79 offensive tackles. Anton Harrison has allowed 2 sacks himself this season. And then on the other side of the offensive line at left tackle, Cam Robinson definitely owns a better pass blocking grade, but he's allowed 4 sacks, which is the most on the team. Keon White, I said it. I mean, I think he's due. It's a nice matchup to get back on track. Just needs the half sack. I'm banking on him getting there this week. And thank you, Josh, for the casual Macri comment. It's Friday night where we're talking IDP bets. I'm very happy and comfortable. So this is fun. This is what we should be doing on a Friday night, right?
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And yeah, great point. I mean, for me, it's all about, obviously we've talked about this. We talked about this on your show a couple weeks ago. He's got the metrics, he's got the talent, he's also got the playing time, and that's half the battle with these defensive linemen. If you're in there 80-90% of snaps, you're gonna luck into half a sack at some point. And it's been a while. So yeah, I'm with you. The vibes are correct for this. I'm with you.
I hope so, right?
Yes. All right, good stuff to start. I am going to go with, and just quick note this week, we are somewhat limited on the options, although they were a little, DraftKings was a little better about getting stuff out this week, but limited options. More should open up tomorrow. But I'm going to take Justin Reed over 5.5 combined tackles at -155. He's up against the Niners, who are the number 2 overall team in the league for allowing safety tackles at 16.7 safety tackles per game. So Reed has passed this line in 2 of 5 games this season and just missed by a half tackle against Atlanta. He plays almost every snap every week and hasn't gone lower than 92% of snaps in any game this season, so no concerns there. The game itself is the 6th highest over under or total for the week at 47 points. Only has a 1.5 point spread. So that suggests a shootout and a close matchup that goes back and forth all game long. That's exactly what we want for Reed this week. San Francisco will actually have their primary pass catching weapons on the field this week with Debo, Ayuk, and Kittle healthy simultaneously. For the, that's about as common as me successfully digesting Taco Bell. It does not happen that often. So, rare occurrence there. And then this game is at San Francisco, so weather or anything won't be a factor. Should be a nice day out. They've got a really solid passing offense. It's a nice setup for Reed to get over this number, and this number was actually 1 tackle lower on DraftKings than it was on Underdog. So nice little thing to take advantage of there. Macri, am I nuts, or what do we think of this one?
No, I love this one. I mean, if you weren't going to take it, I was definitely going to put it in here because Reed is the guy. He's playing more in the box this season for the Kansas City safeties, right? About 47% of his snaps in the box, 32% deep. And interestingly, like this is, I think, a situation where we do want a little bit of both, instead of like the 80% slot and box combo, because he's playing against Brock Purdy. Like you said, you mentioned the passing game. Brock Purdy is the 2nd highest average depth of tackle on the year. So the safeties are going to get some action there. And they're also among the more run heavy teams in the league as well. So playing in the box and playing deep against a high A-dot quarterback, that really helps his case. And it's kind of shown because the 49ers are allowing the 2nd most tackles per game to the safety position this season at 16.7. That number's remained stable over the last 3 games as well. There should be less Chamari Connor this week, I would think, to soak up some of those tackles as well, because the 49ers are they're not a team that plays a lot in 11 personnel. So that's usually when he gets out onto the field. 49ers rank 30th in that regard at 42%. So, I mean, 5.5, like it's a nice number, especially compared to the Underdog number, like you mentioned. So I'm definitely in on Justin Reed this week.
Nice, good stuff. Let's hope it works out. What do you got for number 2?
So I'll stay in the same game, and I'm going to pick another sack prop. And I realize that this is risky because we know how unstable sacks are and how rarely they hit. But it's Chris Jones, so I'm really liking the chances here, especially because it's over 0.25 sacks on DraftKings. So again, another guy that just needs the half sack. We know who Chris Jones is. 92.1 pass rush grade on the year. That's first among defensive interior players. 21.7% win rate. Also first. The 49ers, I think they're going to have to pass more than usual against Kansas City in this game, which is going to create more sack opportunities. And the good thing about that is that Brock Purdy has allowed more sacks himself than any quarterback on the season. So essentially, like basically we've charged him with being at fault for a sack 9 times, either due to holding the ball longer than he should, poor pocket awareness, scrambling around, not getting rid of the ball, things like that, right? That are beyond the control of the offensive line. And similarly, Purdy is allowing the 4th highest pressure rate himself as well among quarterbacks at 26%. So Chris Jones is a guy, I mean, if anybody on that Kansas City Chiefs defensive line can take advantage of that, it's Chris Jones. We just need a half sack here again. So I really like his chances this week.
Yeah. I mean, even just like, shot in the dark, if you didn't tell me the matchup and you said Chris Jones for half a sack any given
Right.
week, I'm probably taking that to start with. So, when the situation lines up as well, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Alrighty. So my next one, I am going to take a page out of Justin Varn's book here. He does a lot of unders. I don't think I've done one under yet this entire season. So I'm going to break the mold. I'm going to say Christian Benford under 3.5 combined tackles at plus 110, which is a great price. So he's up against a Tennessee team that's only allowing 10.2 tackles per game to opposing corners. And frankly, I'd be shocked if Teron Johnson, who just came back last week, blew away his projection and had a game-winning interception, doesn't eat up most of those 10.2 tackles by himself this week. That's a likely outcome. So Benford has been under 3.5 tackles just once this season, but it was in a similar situation against a bad passing attack in Arizona. Similar meaning just as bad as what we're going to see this week in Tennessee. Tennessee is the second worst passing attack in the league. They're dead last in the league for targeting wide receivers. The number one team has like 140 something wide receiver targets. Tennessee has 76. They do not target their wide receivers, right? So 76 wide receiver targets through 5 games, dead last. Will Levi is only completing 16.6 passes per game. Many of those are to running backs out of the backfield or to their tight end position. And if anyone has Hopkins or Ridley on your fantasy team, you already know what I'm talking about, right? You already know how bad this has been. And without a competent quarterback that can target and complete passes to wide receivers, it's going to be a very slow day at the office for Benford and, maybe most of the Buffalo corners as well. And finally, when we look at the spread and the rankings and just these teams in general, we see that there's a real good chance for a blowout here and a real good chance that Benford will be sitting most of the second half anyway, due to the likely bloodbath when Tennessee goes to Buffalo and plays a much better team. What do you think on that one?
Yeah, I love it. I mean, it's a good point too. Like, I think that's one that not a lot of people think about in kind of some of these bets sometimes is when there's that blowout opportunity, there are certain teams that are going to rest their starters, right? And then Christian Benford definitely would be one of those guys. And I like the bet because I mean he's another guy that plays basically exclusively like on the outside, right? He's not coming into the slot, he's not really playing in the box or anything like that. And I mean, like you said, the Tennessee wide receivers are not seeing any action, and forget about completing passes to them either, right? Like Calvin Midley is not getting the ball. DeAndre Hopkins is beyond old at this point, right? So there's just not going to be a lot of opportunities. And like you said, that's why the Titans rank 30th in tackles allowed to the cornerback position. So it's just not a great matchup. And yeah, I mean, if you're going to pick an under, I would definitely be looking towards the Bills corners for that.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, and whatever there is that's going to be there, I just know it's going to be Teron Johnson that gets it. So
Right.
I mean, he looks
Exactly.
so good. He looked so good last week, that first game back. So
Yeah, he was
all
awesome.
right, yep. All right, yeah. What do you got for number 3 here?
So for the third one, I'm also gonna take an under here, and I went with Christian Roseboom, who on underdog he's listed at 9 tackles. On DraftKings he's at 8.5. So depends how comfortable you are with it, but I went under 9 tackles here, or under 8.5. I bet the 8.5 under as well. But Christian Roseboom for the Los Angeles Rams going up against the Raiders. The Raiders are giving up the 19th most tackles per game to the linebacker position, and they're 22nd in offensive plays per game. They're also 29th in run rate, which isn't ideal for the linebacker position, especially a linebacker that's not a full-time player like Christian Roseboom, who is a part-time guy, right? And the snaps are actually getting worse for Roseboom and for Troy Reeder too, where both of those guys are. Last time we saw them before their bye week last week, they basically didn't play on third down and in obvious passing situations, where the Raiders are going to be in more passing situations this week as usual, right? And for me, like 9, 8.5, 9, like that's a high number for a player playing around 70-ish% of snaps. Like even as efficient as he's been, and to his credit, like he's definitely been efficient. If that line was like 7.5, I'd probably leave it alone. Troy Reeder is at 7.5 and he's playing more snaps, and Roseboom has a higher um over under than him, and Reeder and Roseboom's playing less. So it just kind of speaks to how efficient he's been and leaning into that. But tackle efficiency tends to not be the most stable thing for linebackers week to week. So for me, 8.5, 9, like I'm that's a high number. I'm fine to kind of attack the under here and bet on kind of even just a regression to the mean in terms of his efficiency, especially given the matchup from a more pass heavy team who just isn't running the ball much at all. So yeah, I'm going with the under on Christian Roseboom.
Yep, yep, I'm with you on this 100%. Odds are very good that Vegas is going to be in a negative game script quickly and not able to run often at all this week, right? And not to mention that Vegas themselves, as a team defense, is not great against the run. So we're probably going to see a lot of Kyron Williams this week. That's going to make the Rams win the time of possession battle. The Vegas offense isn't going to be on the field that often if they lose the time possession battle, so there'll be limited opportunities for them to run the ball and give Roseboom tackles to begin with. So yeah, it's all lining up for this to be an under for Roseboom, I think. All righty. All right. So number 3 on my end, we're gonna go with the new stud out there in IDP land, Trevon Wallace, over 9.5 combined tackles at -130. So I sat on this one until I was positive that we're not going to see Josie Jewell this week, and we are not going to see Josie Jewell this week. That is confirmed as of today, and obviously Shaq Thompson is done for the season. So it will be Trevon Wallace as the one and only, probably 100% of snaps inside linebacker for Carolina this week. He's gone over this line in 1 out of 2 games that he's been the starter so far, and he just missed by half a tackle last week. So he faces a Washington Commanders team that allows 17.5 tackles per game to opposing linebackers. That may only be 11th overall for that ranking, but in reality, it's only 2 tackles away from the best team in that ranking, which is Pittsburgh. So they're not far off. It's not a huge difference. Game script itself will likely help Wallace as Carolina faces a far better team than what they have with Washington. Washington is top 10 in offensive yards per game, top 10 in rushing yards per game, top 10 in points per game. Carolina is nowhere near that anywhere in any of those categories. And they allow almost 400 offensive yards per game for them defensively. And they allow 33.8 points per game defensively, which is dead last across the entire league. So Washington's favored by, almost a touchdown and a half. They're at home. They're coming off a close loss to a Super Bowl contender in the Ravens. This should be a total bloodbath where Washington should dominate time of possession, get things back on track after that close loss last week. And they right now have 3 minutes better time of possession each week as well. So a whole lot of factors lining up for Trevon Wallace to be on the field early, often all game long, as this Washington team, goes up and down the field on Carolina. All this is to say that Wallace will be on the field for every snap, as this Washington team that loves to run the ball, by the way, 5th overall in this department, 157 yards per game on the ground per week, will be all over Carolina, going up and down the field all game long. It puts him in a good position to surpass this line and have a very busy day at the office.
Yeah, I like this one quite a bit, especially because Josie Jewell's out. And like you said, like if Washington blows them out, this isn't a situation where you necessarily have to worry about somebody like Trevon Wallace kind of being used in a rest situation because they don't have anybody else. And the rookie needs his reps, right? So you're going to leave him out there. It's going to be him. And I think Chandler Wooten is potentially slated to start next to him, right? So Clouden Sherrillis was out as well. So there's no reason, or I don't even think there's even an ability to rest these guys at this point. So you don't worry about the blowout there. And Trevon Wallace is he's, talk about efficiency. He's been somebody that I think 24 tackles over the last 2 games, I want to say, off the top of my head, he's been excellent. So, yeah, I really like Trevon Wallace this week. I've moved him up in the rankings as well with the news that Josie Jewell was going to be out. So, yeah, I like it.
Yeah, big fan of that guy. Picked him up in waivers in a lot of places and just riding the hot hand. He has been spectacular.
Yes, sir.
All right. So, yeah, we got a few more minutes here. What was there anything else that struck your fancy or stuck out to you? Any bonus bets you want to talk about?
Yeah, so I guess the only other one for me that I was looking at was Terrell Bernard, who's over 7 tackles on underdog. I think that number is 7.5 on DraftKings. But even still, like I feel pretty good about this one. Like Titans are yielding the 4th most tackles per game to the linebacker position. And like you said, they're completing a lot of passes to the running backs and in the middle of the field, not so much out wide. And that's where the linebackers live, right? So really like the opportunity here for Terrell Bernard to kind of get back on track this week as far as tackles go, because the Tennessee also yielding the 2nd highest tackle efficiency to the linebacker position at 32.2%. Dorian Williams has obviously been like the super tackler of the group, but Bernard is someone that we've seen kind of high end tackle efficiency from before. So as recently as last season, but he's the 100% snap player. Dorian Williams is coming off the field some. He played the most he's ever played last week, so that was nice to see for him. But I don't think Terrell Bernard is necessarily going to come off the field, and I think he can get 7 to 7.5. Like, I feel that's a good enough number where even in a potential blowout, he should be able to hit that number comfortably. And the Titans they're a team that, again, above average in run rate as well. So yeah, that was the only other one that I placed a bet on this week. But I had thought about Devin Witherspoon of Seattle over 5.5 because they're going up against Atlanta. He's going to be their guy that plays in the slot a lot. The only thing that worries me about him this week is that Tariq Woolen is out. So I worry that Witherspoon's going to have to play more outside this week to kind of help fill that hole while somebody else plays in the slot. So I left it alone, but it's not the worst option either. Like 5.5 for Witherspoon. He's been pretty solid as far as tackles go this season. Atlanta playing the second highest rate of 11 personnel on the season, almost tied with the Rams for first. So yeah, that one was just kind of on the borderline for me though.
Yeah. Okay. So let me run a couple by you that just kind of first impressions I thought might be good. So you are our 11 personnel expert. So let me ask you, D. Alford versus a Seattle team that's allowing the most cornerback tackles in the game right now at 17.2 per game. Is Alford going to get enough action to get over his line this week? I think it was like 5.5.
Okay, so yeah, so that one I don't mind. Seattle plays the 5th highest rate of 11 personnel on the season at 79%. And Alford, yeah, he's somebody that I like quite a bit. I think it was the episode that you were on. We talked about him being like a sneaky play that week. I can't remember who they were facing. It was the Thursday night football game, and he had like three or four tackles on the first drive of the game, and his over under was like 4.5, and then he got the concussion on the same first drive. Like, he was on pace to smoke that that tackle over. But yeah, this could be a similar situation, right, where he's going to be on the field a ton and he's playing in the middle of the field. So you like that for Alford, and 5.5 would be a number that I think I'd be looking to go over on.
Yeah. And then I had one other one that kind of stuck out a little bit. I don't know, but you tell me what you think here. So Jamie Sherwood or Quincy Williams, I don't know what their numbers are, but just in general against the Steelers, who are giving up the most linebacker tackles per game at 19.8 per game. What do you think that looks like?
Yeah, so last week it wasn't great, right? Like CJ Mosley, for whatever reason, they made him active, but then only played him for 10 defensive snaps, which was, I don't know. They're easing him back in. So there's part of me that's concerned that that's going to be not a high chance that it's going to happen again, but there's at least part of me that's worried that he'll be limited to an extent, or sharing time with Sherwood as he kind of works up to being back to that full-time role, because 10 snaps is such a low number. Like, it wasn't even like, if it was more split like 50-50 last week, I'd feel better about him playing the higher snap share this week, or closer to 100%. But there's just part of me that worries. The same thing with Sherwood too, right? Where if if there is no ramp up period now, and that's done, and they play Mosley in a 100% role, then Sherwood basically is become useless, right? He's not going to see the field with Quincy Williams and CJ Mosley out there. So there's just it's a really nice matchup too. That's the thing I like about it. But for me, I think I just want to avoid it for 1 week if you can afford to, for your lineups. I know it might not be easy for everybody, but at the very least, like, I think Sherwood is going to be only like the deepest of leagues. He'd be a possibility to play this week, where Mosley maybe it should play more snaps, but yeah, I'm trying to avoid it if I can. I'm rambling a lot, but hopefully that makes sense why.
Yeah, no worries. All right, good stuff there. All right, buddy. Well, we got our bets in, and we covered, what we always cover. Please do the people a favor. Let them know where they can find you, what you got going on this season. And for anyone that's not reading the IDP report each week, you should absolutely be reading that. Just the alignment data in that is such a lifesaver and such an advantage over your league mates. for defensive backs and stuff like that, amongst other positions. It's just such a great article. But yeah, what else do you got going on this season?
Yeah, IDP Fantasy Report, that'll be out every Tuesday in the afternoon at some point Eastern time. Then I got the IDP Rankings article that'll be out on Thursday mornings. Wide receiver man zone coverage report is also out Thursday mornings. O-line, D-line matchup article is out Friday mornings. And then, the podcast, we do an IDP recap episode. That's me recording that after Sunday Night Football, about 25 minutes or so, going over the top storylines of the week. And then IDP starts its show every single Thursday morning. That'll be out with a different guest from the world of IDP. And we go game by game and talk about all the key IDP information. So that's always fun to do as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would recommend, but this is a live show. We get some comments sometimes asking start sit questions. That's the place to take those. This is a betting show, IDP bets, hence the name. But thank you for the comments, though. We appreciate it. Thank you for watching. And Macri, thank you for coming on tonight, man. I definitely appreciate it, and hope it all works out for us this week.
Let's hope so, man. And yeah, I can't thank you enough for having me. Always a fun time to talk. And yeah, we'll hope that those bets hit, and we'll see if any more fun ones come out. And we'll hope that maybe we'll share those ones as well. But yeah, it'll be good.
Yep. Sounds good. Thank you, buddy. Much appreciated. Before we get out of here, please subscribe to our YouTube channel for our other shows, the flagship IDP Show podcast, the IDP After Show, the IDP Trade Show, and IDP Drafts. If you'd like to support the show, you can do so for just $5 a month over at theidpshow.com. We've got premium features for paid supporters that we know you'll enjoy. Follow us on Twitter at the IDP Show, all one word. Thanks for listening and good luck this week. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you guys same time, same place next week. Have a good one. Take care. Bye-bye.